Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. And of course, a great big welcome to anyone who is joining us for the first time. So, we're going to do the moon reading today. It's going to be for the new moon that hits in today. However, we're going to do it a little bit differently. I got a bunch of requests to do this as a soulmate reading. So, when we did, and it's been coming since a little bit before the full moon that we experienced at the tail end of August. So after the full moon in August, we did a reading that kind of tied it in with the soulmate piece. And afterwards, that was by request. And then afterwards, I got a bunch more requests that, hey, could you just do the moon readings that way? And I thought, you know what? Why not? That is the reason the vast majority of you are here. So this is going to be a moon reading, but it's going to be how it ties in with the soulmate cycle. So of course, it will be a general reading as always, and it's not going to resonate with everyone, as I always say, because it shouldn't resonate with everybody. It's going to be for this collective. So if you find out that that's you, you get in here and you do some listening and you realize that you really resonate with it, you may want to get in and look at some of the other readings that have been done, because all of these are very much, they are connected. So, we're going to do it very similarly to the way that I typically do the moon readings, except we're just going to narrow it down to just the energy around the moon and the timing of the new moon and as it relates to the soulmate cycle. So let's do something around the energy. I usually do that energetic backdrop. I want to look at the energy between the two of you right now. That's what I really want to look at as we open up this reading. Energy between the two of you. There have been so many more dreams, even since the reading that I did on the dreams. It seems like there's a lot that's kind of going on in there. So we've got the King of Cups, but it's in reverse. This feels like energy that it started out with a good intention, but kind of, and not that the intention is poor, but it kind of got a little bit nuts on them. There's a lack of trust, a lack of ability to kind of trust themselves in this situation, maybe even feeling a little bit of a lack of self-trust on your part. But basically it amounts to always being a little bit unsure of where the other one is coming from. Ace of Cups in the reverse. Yeah, so it's stopping emotion from flowing. There's a little bit of a cutoff in the energy between the two of you right now, and it's a fear that's kind of like, reminds me a little bit of like when two people hit a doorway at the same time and then they both like correct the same direction, and there's, instead of being able to just kind of go, there's that kind of feeling of both of you kind of correcting in the same directions, and it's causing you to feel a little bit more emotionally or energetically, not necessarily energetically awkward, but more emotionally awkward about each other. So if you're running into each other, if you're coming in contact with each other, it's not necessarily feeling as smooth as what you might like it to be. But there is a sense of wanting to make things right, and not necessarily knowing how to do it, not necessarily having access to all the tools that are required to make things right. So it's a little bit of an awkward feeling, but I feel like the intentions are pretty positive here. Queen of Wands, a lot of attraction. You know, I mentioned in yesterday's reading somewhere about they can't get out of your orbit, and it's kind of like they are so much attracted. There's so much gravity there, they have a hard time getting out. You also have the Queen of Swords, though. They feel like you will not take their nonsense. On some level, they have picked up on your strength and feel like it amounts to them not believing that it comes in with that lack of self-trust, though. It just pings right off of it. It feels like they don't trust themselves in some way, so there's a fear that they naturally just kind of put in, even though it may not be super relevant. King of Cups in reverse. Again, that's the second King of Cups. Again, with the emotional limitation. This is playing it safe. And this is playing it safe to the point where it is self-sabotaging sort of behavior. I feel like that's pretty strong happening on their part. But the emotion between the two of you ends up being a little bit less connected as a result. But not be, I don't know that the two of you are less connected. I think it's just the emotions um, are challenging. So in the meantime, though, I feel like there's a lot of growth that is occurring here. And so it's like I mentioned the other day that we had a reader that said something, and I get the notes from you. Some of you say, hey, you know, you've turned in almost like my journal. And one person made a comment, and I mentioned it in one of the readings, but it was like they are going through this cycle, and each time they go through it, it feels a little bit different. So they're getting to it from a little bit deeper of a level. And so every time they come around and something happens and something doesn't exactly go as well as it did, they have, or as well as they would want it to, they have a little bit less emotion that they're having attached to this. A little more of a feeling of stability and this emotional independence that I'm feeling coming off of this card. Keep going. I mean, this is not something that unravels for you immediately. It's like, you know, another metaphor I've used is an onion. You know, the layers of an onion. We have the Six of Pentacles here, feeling of, so this is kind of interesting. They know that they haven't invested in you properly. They know that there's a lot of fear there. They also, on some level, because your energy is so close together all the time, they feel like there's this comfort with you and this exchange of spiritual energy that that takes place that does not happen. It is not mirrored on the physical level, but it's formidable. It's one of the reasons that they have the strength that they have. But there's a significant amount of struggle in your energy as the two of you start to kind of, there's a sense of you two waking up to each other, and that's kind of where this comes from. So we've got the Eight of Wands in the reverse, Eight of Pentacles in the upright, oh, and the Seven of Cups. It's back. And then we have the Cassiopeia card that's in the reverse, which is kind of like the Judgment card. So this is basically between the two of you. I am feeling an energy of discord, a lot of attraction, a lot of not being sure where to put all of the emotion, a lot of feeling like I'm not the person I was before, and your person isn't the person that they were before. Since the two of you have changed, or since you have crossed paths, there's a lot that has happened between the two of you, and it shows up in this energy, but it's not necessarily resolved. Everything is not necessarily resolved, which we see with the Cassiopeia card here in the reverse. With the Seven of Cups, we see there's a lot of options in front of you, a lot of paths that you could potentially take, but there's a stifling of that energy with the Eight of Wands here, because it's not clear which way to go. It's not clear how to make things right. And with this moon, there is such a strong desire to make things right. It reminds me of, so we're past that Venus retrograde, but it reminds me of the energy of that Venus retrograde where there was just this desire to make things right inside yourself. With this, it's more of a desire to make things right as you reach out. But like I was saying yesterday, and I can't remember if it was in the YouTube reading or if it was in the extended, but there's this feeling of, you know, nothing being in a rush, not needing to move forward with it quickly. Definitely a little bit more clarity coming out, even with the heaviness of this energy and even with that Seven of Cups. It feels like the clouds are starting to clear. Maybe that's that Mercury retrograde that's, I mean, there's still, you can feel it for a while after it ends. I think it ended yesterday though. And so it's not like going to turn off like a switch. It just sort of fades. But I feel like maybe that's what's happening. We're having a little bit more clarity come about as a result. So, did I have one turn over? I felt like it turned over, but then it might have just bounced back. Yeah, it just bounced back. I feel like I've got to pull at least one more card. I don't ever know how many more cards I've got to pull. I just know, I know when I'm done with it. So, Ten of Wands in the reverse. All right. So, with the Ten of Wands in the reverse, this is that feeling of needing to, this is not the feeling that I usually get with the Ten of Wands. So, I usually get something about a burden. There's a burden here, but it's like burden as you're walking down a path. And this is almost like you've got a camel that is, like you're the camel and you just are refusing to walk down the path. And the camels have a way to, of refusing to do things that they feel very emotional about certain things and need to be negotiated with a certain way, and you're like not having it. It's that feeling that it's too much and you just aren't making the trek in some way. Putting your foot down about something, it might be, and I get this from several of you, hey, this person is not reaching out to me. They're not giving me the equal give and take, even though on that soul level they may not feel as inclined to, because they're already feeling a balance with you in that sense. But unfortunately, in the 3D sense, that's where the pull comes from, because the attraction is so strong in both places. But that feeling of just kind of, you know what, I've done what I can do here, and I don't know that I'm going to continue on carrying this burden. So that's how the burden plays into it. Let's look at the impact of this moon. See what that's bringing to you. All right, so we've got the Knight of Spheres in the reverse. It is an inconsistent energy. But again, with nothing being in a rush, it's also not a very comfortable energy, but like we were talking about again yesterday, this is about finding the comfort in the uncomfortable. That's a lesson that we've seen come up across the year now, a little bit more than a year that I've been out here doing YouTube readings for you guys. Finding comfort in uncomfortable places has been part of the importance of the lessons that you've been learning. The Two of Swords here talks about making a decision. You're at a crossroads, going in the right direction, but again, not taking the decision as something that has to be done quickly. There's a feeling here that it just needs to be done correctly. You want to make things right, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in a rush. And there is an ability to be uncomfortable, and to hold that position. Even so, it reminds me of yoga. Being able to do it, and with yoga, you don't run away from the pain. You kind of go into the pain, and you just get comfortable with it. And it reminds me of that a little bit. Three of Spheres in the reverse. That's reiterating the message of comfort within the discomfort, honestly. And that's something that, but not just that it happens with this moon, that things are going to be uncomfortable. It's not so much that. It's more that, yes, there are going to be some areas of discomfort, but you're going to be fine with it. Your ability to find comfort in it, it's a valuable lesson that you've been learning. All right, so a couple fall, but I also had some turnover in here. All right, we've got the Ace of Wands. There's an opportunity in here. You may feel like you're afraid to run after it. Might feel like you're afraid to run after it, and that you are wanting to run back to something you have already had before. Interesting, because that's a shared energy. It's not just your person. You've got an opportunity. Let me work through this again, make sure I didn't miss anything. So you've got an opportunity. You are going to be disinclined to move toward it, because you want to go back to something that existed in the past. This reminds me of what we saw yesterday in the third party reading. Maybe it was in the extended, and about the confidence that your person has around that third party situation because it's the known. I'm getting like the same sort of thing in you. I don't necessarily get that it's about the relationship, but there's something here that is going toward what you know and not going toward something new, even though it's an opportunity that could be very useful, be very lucrative maybe. You've got the Queen of Pentacles here. There's a lot of confidence as you're moving that direction. And honestly, so this is a decision that needs to be made. It's not one that needs to be rushed. You have a lot of confidence about it. I see that with the Seven of Wands and with the Queen of Pentacles. I'm just going to let it roll, because I think you might be... I don't know that you're missing an opportunity. It isn't just going to come around again, because we've definitely seen that come out. I don't specifically see a card here for it, but let yourself be guided by the emotion. There's a lot of opportunity for emotion with this moon, but also a lot of opportunity for new things to come to light. So we've seen the Hanged Man come out in every single reading here recently. Keeps coming out in the reverse. Here's the equivalent of it again. I can't stress it enough, though. No reason to rush. No reason to make a rash decision about anything. No reason to worry that you've got to do something by a certain time. This is all about learning lessons. This is not energy of quick change. But the thing is, your person may not be doing the energy of quick change either. This is a time for connecting with your higher self, with your higher power. Um, Take a look back at that iceberg post that I put up a couple days ago, that was a few days ago now, that was referencing something I said in a reading. I tried to kind of put it out in the post again as well, to just at least describe and give it some, perspective. But as you are doing your prayer and your meditation, consider that and think about the connection with that higher power and your higher self, because this is a time, with this moon, that you're going to be inclined to make some good progress there. Balance is coming. We talked about this being a moon where there's going to be a desire to make things right. This is that desire to make things right. It's the Libra card. And so it's the scales. It's also like the Justice card, the Justice card in the traditional tarot. Now, there is a sense of significant change, but it's being pushed away for a better time. That's not necessarily the end of the world, but realize that if you're pushing it away because of healing that needs to be done, it may be part of the solution. Okay, so that's something that that also kind of wants to come out there. I thought that was a oh, hold on, we got something else in here, and it's real. What else? That's it. Okay, so it's already in motion. It's already in motion. Oh, but we've got our impasse. All right, so it's already in motion, the change that you're looking to make, the one that you might be wanting to push back on because the healing is not there. And for sure, that is true of your person. So we've seen them doing a lot of pushing things away, refusing to move forward, but not necessarily having a ton of choice in the matter. Here's a situation where both of you find yourselves in that boat a little bit. I don't think it's going to impact you all that much. Again, this is something that's already in motion. I think you're aware of that on some level. But I think maybe it might be a little bit more of a shock to your person, who is still kind of working through some of the changes within their values, and maybe just a little less comfortable with it overall. Not necessarily that it's going to cause a huge hiccup as far as making a decision, but I also think that decision is not moving quickly, and that's kind of the impact of this moon. So it could be perceived as a little bit of a resting period, but may not be, because it may be so frustrating because nothing is moving. Let's get you some advice and see maybe how you can best utilize the energy that comes out here, because there's the energy of making things right, which is incredibly possible or positive, but there's also that energy of things not moving very quickly. There's a lot of good in that, but also some frustration in that. You have the opportunity to look at the big picture, and with this King of Swords here, make some sense of it. That's a very logical energy. I like the energy of the King of Swords when it is balanced, because there's a strong intellect, but it's not one that gets so far into the intellect that that the emotion can't be regarded. So I definitely feel like I saw something come out over here. Here we go. Didn't want to miss it. We've got the Four of Cups coming out in the reverse. Be prepared for something to be a little different from what it seems, but in a very positive way. It could be a little bit overwhelming from an emotional standpoint, so be prepared for that. But it also could push you in the direction of your healing. So again, something that feels like it's already in motion, but something that feels like you might want to put it off because you don't feel like you're quite ready for it, might be part of the healing that you're seeking. But it might also surprise you, the intensity with which it comes in. So be prepared for that. Keep your eyes wide open. Look for the patterns as they start to emerge. That's going to be helpful for you. So we've got the Phoenix card in the reverse. That's like the Death card in the reverse. And we've got the Horologium in the reverse. Okay, so Definitely some need for you to get in there and do that meditation. Allow that healing to happen. Allow that prayer to happen. If you haven't seen, if you have any interest in this and you haven't seen it, back in October of last year, I did a video on meditations that you can find over in the bonus videos. And a few months later, just a few months ago or a few weeks ago, I did another one on what my mantras are. And so the mantras show up periodically. Those have proven to be somewhat helpful, not just in these readings, but even as people have gone back and looked at the video. So if you would like to engage in some prayer and meditation, those are a little bit of guidance about how you might go about it. And based on the resistance that I'm seeing here and kind of the growth that is needed, those might be a good way to go and make the whole thing a lot more enjoyable. I was going to say much less painful, but honestly, I feel like the pain part is the part that you're still reliving, and it's from the past. It's not so much happening as you go. So with the Knight of Swords, there is something that makes you have a reaction that makes you want to run away, but it feels like something is opening up in you. This happens kind of in this time frame. You're not going to have, I don't think, a super hard time quelling that and just saying, hold on, before I take off. I've seen somebody do this, and it's that 10 of Cups lesson again, right? I've seen somebody do this, and I've seen somebody do it inaccurately or inappropriately, and they bailed and they ghosted out on me, and all of a sudden, and I think you're going to stop yourself before it gets to a place like that. But there's a sense of disappointment here. And I think, though, that it's a sense of disappointment where you get in and you start making comparisons between this new situation and your person. And not to say that it doesn't compare favorably, but it's like you're not ready. That sense again of not being ready, and yet this is part of what heals you. Keep your eyes open. There may be more positivity in this. You may be looking at it in a way that is more suited to experiences you've had in the past, where you may have something much more fulfilling coming your way. So this is the sense of a happy ending, something that ends a cycle, something that puts the end to a cycle. So it reminds me of, in a couple of situations, I think it's probably going to be, and I say a couple of situations, I have no idea how many of you, I know it's going to be some of you. There is another person that comes in and shakes things up. Don't know if it's that soulmate that you guys are running across, or if it's just something that maybe it's that social situation, but I don't think it's that. I think it's somebody that just kind of comes in. They don't have the intention around anything. They just they shake things up because they make you see things from a different perspective. It could just be something you hear somebody say and you go, oh, never really thought of it. They don't even have to be talking about like you or talking to you. But it may be just something that you never really thought about it that way. And when you do, it changes a lot of things for you in your perspective regarding this situation. You've got the Pegasus card in the reverse. There may be some parts in here, sometimes in here, almost feels like the Lover's card in reverse, which with this one, I think it's in Aurora Borealis. No, it's, I forget what it's called. I would have to see the card, and that makes me crazy because I know what it is. But anyway, it feels a little bit like feeling like your hands are tied, feeling like you don't have a choice. Definitely that feeling of Corona Borealis. That's what it is. Okay, definitely that feeling of the lessons that you still have to do. So there was that concern about, I'm not quite ready for this. I feel like I need more healing, and yet this is something that brings you some healing. It brings you some healing around that rejection and abandonment, and some of the fear that maybe has been in there. Knight of Pentacles is an honorable mention, just to say this is not something that you're necessarily, like, you're already moving in this direction. It's not, and we know that. We already saw that, and you're consistently moving in this positive direction, but sometimes it just feels disjointed and slow, And in this energy of this moon, it feels especially disjointed and slow. But I think you get okay with it, especially you will, because you'll know. And you've got this King of Pentacles energy. I mean, I don't feel like I've got to worry about you. I feel like this is, now you might certainly have days where things are a little bit more frustrating, but I also feel like your attitude, your self-talk is going in the right direction. Oh, what did I drop? Nothing, face up. Yeah, your self-talk going in the right direction is significant. You're moving toward happiness. And we've seen that in other readings. I wonder what just came out for us here. I could swear I saw, there it is. Well, it's the sun, and it says, you're, you're moving toward happiness. Maybe I should wait until the cards come out to do the talking. But really, I guess I'm just telling you what's sitting in the energy, and then the cards will come out, and they have this tendency to be very supportive of it because the cards have a fantastic way of bringing, and that's why we use them, right? I mean, they have a way of bringing out the lessons that you need to hear at the times you need to hear them, and sometimes just the messages. So you're moving in a great direction. There's a lot of reinforcement for the what you've been doing, and just kind of that opportunity now to step back, look at the big picture, and start to see some of the patterns. And you know what? Another thing that that comes up for me, even as especially as I'm looking at this card, is if you have journals, if you are a person who has journaled this process, go back, read some of those journals around the time of this, like in this time frame. Doesn't have to be today, but before too long, in the next few days, go back and read, excuse me, some of those journal entries and just kind of see what's come up there. Um, so let's get you an oracle card. This is going to be from my Moonology deck. With the moon readings, I always like to do fun things because with the moon is one of those celestial bodies that actually feels like I feel impacted by it fairly often. You won't see a ton of astrology on this. Not that I don't interact with astrology, just if it really pops up and feels like it's got to be talked about, that's where we do it. But for the most part, this is energy that just kind of doesn't belong to a specific sign a lot of times. A lot of times I'm not going to talk about something that doesn't specifically impact my energies. But when all of a sudden we start seeing this Mercury retrograde and all these people starting to act like it's Mercury retrograde, I'll mention it, you know. And the moon, I will always pretty much mention because that one I, I can't help but feel. All right, let's see here. So an oracle card for you. What have I dropped? Here we go. We have new moon in Scorpio telling you to work through your fears. So I feel like this is essentially what you're doing over here because it's your fears that are telling you, hey, I'm not ready for this. I feel like I've got more healing to do. Recognition that this is already in motion. But also just now having the knowledge that this thing that's already in motion that you feel like you're maybe not quite ready for, this is going to be something that helps you to work through some additional healing. So being able to work through your fears is particularly useful in this. I love this message of working through your fears. I feel like that's kind of already the direction that you're going and that the two of you are going, but it's very much, it feels like your energies are back to back, and looking out from, so you're not necessarily facing one another. It's like your backs are to one another and you're looking out at all of the challenges, which honestly, that's how you're able to support each other in working through these fears and working through these lessons. But I know that it remains challenging, and that's one of the reasons we keep doing these readings. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I appreciate you being with me for this one, and tomorrow we'll start looking into refreshing that energy for the month of September because I think it's about time for that, especially with the energy of the Mercury retrograde. And actually, I think the retrograde actually goes until tomorrow because I was talking about it ending yesterday. I don't think it ended yesterday. I think it actually ends tomorrow. And then, we've got the new moon that's coming up. So the new moon actually shows up on the 15th. And I think I said earlier that it happens today. It happens on the 15th. So I got my dates wrong all over the place. But what it ultimately is it happens on the 15th. And I think the retrograde wraps up just before that. So as we start to do refreshes, then let's take a look. I'm going to go make sure I've got my dates right on the Mercury retrograde. And we'll kind of see what's happening with that. But I think that's going to be relevant as we get into the refreshes. So I look forward to seeing you there, and I'll see you tomorrow.